Hi everybody, thank you so much for joining us and welcome to this afternoon's webinar on Monitor Your School Attendance. This webinar is particularly for those schools who are not yet sharing their daily attendance data with the Department for Education. I'll start by introducing myself. I'm Laura Walklett. I'm the Comms and Engagement Lead on the Daily Attendance Data programme. And I'm joined by Caroline Kempner, who's our Head of Data Transformation at DFE, and also by Jamie Bowen, who is the Policy Lead on Attendance Data Policy. If we could just move the next slide, please. The webinar is going to be recorded and it will be published on YouTube. Once the recording is available, we will send you the link to the email that you signed up for the webinar today. Please ask any questions that you have throughout the meeting in the Q&A bar, and we'll try to answer as many as we can throughout the meeting. We'll also send some common questions and any questions that we've not been able to get to the email that you signed up with at the end of the after the meeting. We'll also take some common questions at the end, so please do let us know what you'd like us to answer. Throughout the meeting as well, we'll be also sharing some useful links for you to some of the things that are on the slides. If we can go to the next slide, please. Thank you. So as I said, today's session is particularly for those schools and trusts that are not yet sharing their daily attendance data with us here at DFE. And so what we're going to do is just start with an introduction to the daily attendance data programme. We're going to talk you through mandating, and as I mentioned, we've got Jamie here to do a bit of a policy update. We're going to take you through how to share your school's data, and then the tools available to you once you have shared that data, and then also some useful links and further reading for you as well. Next slide, please. So first of all, I'm just going to give you a bit of an introduction, as I said, to daily attendance data. If we move on to the next slide. So maximising attendance is a priority for the department, as you all know, and I'm sure a priority for lots of you as well. And we learned during the pandemic just how important it is to have real-time data on attendance. So from the start of the next academic year, it will be mandatory for schools to share your daily attendance data with us, and 91% of schools already are. And our aim is that we can use that data to help you to identify where support is needed and take action to make improvements as well. And the way we do that is by providing a suite of products to report on attendance, and also by providing local and national data to allow for more frequent benchmarking. And what we're going to do today is talk you through the products that we have that can help you to manage your attendance. And that also includes a new bandings report that was released just at the end of last week. You may have already received an email from us yesterday about that, but we're also going to show you that and talk you through that as part of today's webinar. So I am going to hand over now to Jamie, who's our policy lead, who's going to talk you through mandating and a bit of a policy update.
Hi, Laura. Thank you for that. Just testing that you can hear me. I'm looking for a thumbs up from Caroline. Fantastic. Hi, everyone. As Laura said, my name's Jamie Balgin. I'm one of the policy advisors for school attendance here at the Department for Education. I wanted to start actually with just a huge thank you for all the amazing work that you're doing in your settings to improve attendance. I think last year there were 440,000 fewer pupils who were persistently absent or not attending compared to the year before. And there are 375,000 more pupils in school every day. So that's a huge accomplishment and a testament to all the work that's going on in schools. But I think, like all countries around the world, we've still got a way to go, I think, before we return to those crucial pre-pandemic levels of school attendance. So I just wanted to start with what I hope is a reminder, and Amanda, if we could just move on to the next slide. Which is hopefully a reminder that earlier in the year we laid a series of regulations before Parliament in the attendance space, which schools must comply with from the beginning of the next academic year. So this includes a revised version of the Working Together to Improve School Attendance guidance, which is statutory from the beginning of next year. We're also mandating the use of attendance and absence codes to improve and modernise school registers. We've also introduced a new national framework for penalty notices for parents. And finally, and most relevant to this webinar, is an obligation on schools to share their daily attendance data with us. If we just move on to the next slide, please, Amanda. Thank you. So on Friday, we made available to the sector 2 new tools for schools to use, with the intention really of equipping every school with more granular and more forensic data. The first of those, for those of you who are or are planning to share your daily attendance data with us soon, which we hope you are, is you will have access to a new absence banding report within your Monitor Your School Attendance. Caroline's going to demonstrate that shortly, so I won't go into too much detail, but I just wanted to sort of linger on the idea that you can now filter by key characteristics, including free school meals and SEND, and see those 5% absence bandings that we want schools to start thinking about. Then the second, and for further comparison, we've introduced a public interactive tool which provides national and local authority level breakdowns to the 2022-23 census data. So this table we're providing with more information about the distribution of absence across year groups and pupil characteristics. We hope this will help schools to sort of identify, like all schools across the country, where those areas of improvement have been since COVID, and where there are further areas of challenge where focus needs to be drawn. We're providing the functionality really because as a sort of policy group, we know that the most effective schools in tackling absence are already looking at their data banded by this severity and year group, and we want to make sure that all schools in England have access to the tools, to adopt this approach. We also know that our attendance hubs who support schools across the country with attendance have highlighted 3 priority areas where schools, where as a school you may wish to particularly focus in using the new tools, really to build on some of the outstanding practice that we know is happening up and down the country already. The first is supporting pupils who have that absence band between the 5 and 15% range. This is a group that's significantly increased since the pandemic. The idea that you miss one day, a fortnight, or whatever. And this is a priority because we know that attendance barriers for these children, we think, are more likely to be in school barriers, and focus here can help bring those children into the 0 to 5% range so that they're attending almost every day. The second is this double transition idea from primary to secondary. So that's from year 6 to year 7, and from year 7 to 8. These are critical points where attendance tends to drop off, and the drop between year 6 and 7 nationally is particularly marked for children who are eligible for free school meals. So it'd be interesting to see if in your school the data that we see through the tools is reflecting that trend. The drop in attendance between year 7 and 8 applies to all cohorts and all pupils fairly equally. So it's about how we maintain that inclusive culture within schools. And then the third, which you will be really familiar with, is of course on the more severe end, which is really difficult and requires in some cases a multi-agency approach for children facing the most complex barriers to school. So yes, the 3 groups we think that schools should be looking at are the children in the 5 to 15%, the transition years from year 6 to 7 and year 7 to 8, and then the children at the more complex and severe end. I think I'm now handing over to Laura, apologies. Thank you very much. Laura, are you still with us?
I think something may have gone wrong, so I'm just wondering if anyone else? Can everyone hear me? This is Caroline speaking. You probably just can't see me because Laura's the one who's moving me onto screen, but I will talk this through while Laura's having connection difficulties, I think. So the easiest way for you to share your data, oh, thank you, whoever did that. My name is Caroline. I'm heading up this work on the data, daily data. So we partner with a company called Wand, who many of you will be familiar with, to go through the process of getting your data daily from your management information system. So there are two ways you can agree to share your data if you're not already. If you already have the Wand portal in your school, then you go into that, select DFE and review the request to share a subset of your data. If you don't have access to the Wand portal or can't see it, just contact support@wand.com. Just wanted to emphasize that it's completely free for you to do this. It's easy for you to do, and it's very automated, well, completely automated. So what you need to do is review that request, and then every day the automatic process will happen to share information from your management information system to DFE. The benefits of sharing the daily data are wider really than just for your school. So we're going to show you the tools that you will have access to once you start sharing your data. And those are available for you. But also the information that you share with us is also shared largely with your local authority as well as with your trust. And as you'll hear later, it's extremely beneficial for local authorities to have up-to-date information on attendance, particularly for vulnerable children. So if we move on, we'll show you the sorts of things you can get in a moment. So when you agree to share your data, and as I said, it is a subset of your data, you'll be able to see precisely which data fields we are asking for. Then Wand connect with your management information system. So that happens, Wand sets up the connection, and then up to 4 weeks later, we will contact you to say you can now access the reports that I will show you in a minute. You have to go through a process to request access, and then you will be able to see all the things I'm about to show you. During the course of this work, we have done a lot of work on data protection and data privacy. We have published our data protection impact assessment and our data privacy notice for this work, which you can view on gov.uk. And also, very importantly, we've worked on being very clear with schools how we will and will not use this data. So we're very kind of recognising that this is the first time as a department we have asked and you have shared data direct from your operational systems that is not sort of cleansed in the way that it is traditionally when you send us school census data. So if you're interested in that, if that's a point of nervousness for you, then please do have a look at that information. Next slide, please. If you want to check if you're already sharing data, because we have had situations where schools aren't sure if they are or not. If you're from a local authority or trust, you'll need to check with your school. If you're from a school, you can either log into your Wand portal to check whether you're sharing data, or again, you can check with Wand. Contact them at support@wand.com. We've also published some guidance on how to share data, and the link will be in the Q&A. Next slide, please. So now I'm going to show you what the tools look like. So there are 3 broad types of tools. The first one, which is called Monitor Your School Attendance Data, is accessed through something called View Your Education Data platform that the DFE publishes a lot of information on. So you may already be familiar with that for things like viewing your financial information, or somebody in school might be. So that Monitor Your School Attendance Data is a secure platform for schools, trusts and local authorities, which means that you only get to see on that platform your own data if you're in a school, or if you're in a local authority, the data for schools within your local authority. Then we have some tools which I'll also briefly show you, called Compare Your Attendance, which is where, as it says sort of on the naming, you can compare your attendance with others, and that is also on View Your Education data, so it's secure and only for you to see, and that at the moment is just for schools. And then the third product we have is public information every fortnight, which gives national stats on where we are on attendance. So one of the things that we are very aware of is that depending on what other products and management information system you have, you will have a variety of tools that you're already using to monitor attendance. So what we'd recommend is that you look at what we're offering for free and see which bits of the offer of the products we're offering would fill gaps for you, are easy for you to use, so that it fits what you need. So let's move on, and I'll show you the first element. This is the monitor your school attendance part. Next slide, please. And this is secure for you to use. So what it is it's a sort of typical dashboard type view, which starts off with this kind of view that you see here, which is an insights dashboard. So if you look across the top of that screenshot, there's something with a blue underlining there, which is called Insights Dashboard. And what that shows you is the headline for year to date, and at the bottom for the last 5 days of your attendance and absence overall for the school. And then there's a series of filters that you can select, and that has things on it like compulsory school age, sex, ethnicity, year group, free school meals, and then it also has things like persistent absence and severe absence. So you can select any of those filters or any combination of those filters to look at a headline dashboard for attendance in your school. Next slide, please. Thank you. There are also data visualizations. This is an example where you can see trends over time. So you can easily spot declines and improvements. And again, the filters that I showed you on the previous slide are available on here. So you'll be able to use these kinds of visualizations to look at attendance, absence and unauthorized absence. Next slide, please. There's also some information which shows you term by term how your attendance compares to previous academic years, and whether that's improving or declining. And the same sorts of filters are available on the right hand side. So it's all very flexible and you can sort of use it in the way that suits you. So that's all sort of whole school level. And then you can drill down to look at an individual pupil's attendance. So this is an example where we're looking at the attendance for a particular pupil, and there's a date selector, and it gives you sort of basic information about that pupil, the number of their overall attendance, the number of sessions they've missed, and so on. Next slide, please. So that's a very sort of whistle-stop tour of the secure monitor your attendance that you can see. There's a lot more to it, but it gives you a flavour of the sorts of things you could get once you start to share data. So what I'm going to talk about next is a report that at the moment is only available to schools, again in that monitor your attendance secure area. So this is the report that Jamie was talking about, which is the absence bandings. So if we could go to the next slide, please. So as Jamie said, this is about splitting out the sort of overall attendance and even persistent absence into more granular bands to enable you to more easily focus on different groups of children and what might work to improve their attendance and catch pupils that are at risk of becoming persistently absent earlier. So let's show you what that looks like on the next slide, please. So I know this looks a little bit complicated, but just to give you a flavour. So this is a new report, as I said, that's been added into the main tool. So what that the number 1 shows you is where you would find it once you have access. So there's a new report called absence bandings. Now, what that then shows you is the absence year to date, and this gets refreshed very regularly for the pupils in your school. And what we're seeing here is a secondary school. So what we've got is absence bandings in 5 percentile. So if you look at the top, you've got an absence rate of 0% to less than 5%, and then that goes down all the way to the bottom where you've got absence rate greater than or equal to 50%. Then you've got a column showing the number of pupils. That's the one with the number 3 on it. And then the number 4, that's the total percentage of pupils in that band in the school. And then number 5 shows you whether those are within the persistent absence or severe absence bands. So this is the basic report. Then you can use the filters to dig into the different bandings. So for example, you can look at year groups and all the other characteristics I was talking about earlier, like free school meals, sex, ethnicity, and so on. So what you can then do, if we go on to the next slide, is you can click on each of the bandings, and that will take you to a list of the actual pupils in that band. And again, you can apply the filters. And when you're in that report, you can order it according to their absence rate. So let me show you a particular example. So if we go on to the next slide, please. So this is a real example for an anonymised secondary school. So you can see here that they've got nearly 65% of their pupils are in the top band. So those pupils are absent less than 5% of the time. They've got a significant proportion of their pupils, nearly 20% of pupils, in that 5 to 10% band. So those pupils could be approaching persistent absence. And then they've got a further 5% of pupils just at the bottom who've tipped over into persistent absence. And those are the 2 groups that Jamie was suggesting that it would be good for schools to focus on, because there may be changes in school policies or how those pupils, you could look at all the different filters and see who those pupils are and see whether there's anything different you could do to get their attendance to improve, because there's a big group of pupils. And interestingly, in this particular example, the numbers of pupils who are in the 10 to 15% band is as big as those complex pupils with severe absence. So that's just an example, but as Jamie said, we found that the schools who are doing best at improving attendance, really, this is a sort of really good granular way of looking at attendance. Next slide, please. So the other thing I said that I would show you is the second part of the information available through the secure portal, and that is the comparison tools. So if we go on to the next slide. So again, this is only for schools at the moment, and sorry, this does look slightly complicated, but it's sort of the feedback we've had is very intuitive once you get it and once you can access it. So what this does is say, I want to compare my attendance in my school and see how I'm doing compared to other schools in the same phase as me. So this is available for primary schools and secondary schools. So that number 1 there, it tells you I'm looking at national comparison now. I'll show you a local authority one in a minute. And then there are various different measures if you look at the box labelled number 2. So you can look at attendance, absence, authorised and unauthorised absence and persistent absence. And then what we do is we take your school's attendance year to date, and we order it against all the other schools in the same phase, and then we put you into deciles, so the 10% bandings. So what we have here, we have a school with overall attendance. If you look at box number 4 of 94.7%, so you have your overall attendance, and then it tells you which decile you're in. So in this example, the school is in decile 5. And what it also allows you to do, there's a box called number 3, which has got filters. It allows you to be a bit more nuanced and look at your pupils with free school meals and your pupils with SEN. So what I'll do now is I'll show you an example for a real secondary school, anonymised, of course. So if we go on to the next slide. So what we have in this compare tool is we have the ability to look at your position within your local authority. So in this case, it shows you how you rank. So in this case, there are 33 secondary schools in the local authority. And this particular school, on their overall attendance for all their pupils in their school, they rank 4th, or they did at the point of time this was taken. Interestingly, in this particular case, if you look down that little table, for unauthorised absence, they rank 18. So I think if I was in that school, I'd probably want to have a look at what was going on with unauthorised absence in the school compared to other schools in the local authority. And then if we go on to the next slide, please. So this is the national comparison. So we're now looking at the national comparison. How is my school doing against other schools, other secondary schools? In this case, their overall attendance at that point in time was 92.9%. And they're in the 3rd decile. So if you look at that highlighted row called decile 3, what that does there is tell the school within that decile, what's the lowest and highest attendance. So that decile ranges from 92.8% to 93.5%. So that school is just in that decile. So it just gives you an idea of how far you need to go to move up and shows you how you compare with other schools. So what's interesting here is they're in the 3rd decile for their overall attendance for all their pupils. But if we go on to the next slide, thank you, you will see that if we've now selected all their pupils with free school meals, and for their attendance for those pupils, they've moved down to the 8th decile. So compared to other secondary schools, for their pupils with free school meals, their attendance is relatively to their overall attendance they're not doing so well. So that looks like it should be an area of focus and investigation for that school. So these are all just tools, aren't they, to help you focus all the work that you're doing on attendance. So let's move on to the final part of the tools that we're going to show you. So do you remember I said that the 3rd element is a public dashboard? So this is published every fortnight. And it has a sort of overall dashboard, which is the blue figures on the left-hand side, which gives the national position on absence and attendance and authorised and unauthorised absence. But it also has an interactive dashboard, which allows you to do a lot of different things, create your own tables, download data. It's got a geographical element, so you can go to regions, you can go to local authority level. So that really, feedback we've had is that really helps people when they're trying to put their information into context. It helps them when they're reporting to governors. And the reason we've done a lag for that information is one of the things schools told us when we set this up is that because obviously we're taking information from your live system, schools have said that obviously you are updating the information you get about a pupil's attendance when you find out more information about it. So we've built in a deliberate lag before we publish this information publicly to take account of the changes that you make in your data. So if you make changes in your data, a few days later, that all then gets brought through into that automated pipeline from one that we were talking about. Next slide, please. So that's sort of all we wanted to show you on all the different tools that we are providing back to you. And I hope that you can see from that we are really working to add value to, you're sharing the data with us, and then we're providing useful tools back to across the sector. And we take user feedback all the time. We have user researchers on the team and we're always looking to improve the products that we're providing to you. We just wanted to show you briefly, if we go on to the next slide, the sorts of feedback that we've had from schools, but also from local authorities and from a virtual school head. So I'll just pause here and let you have a look at what they're saying. We know that for local authorities in particular, this is a very, very significant improvement. We've also got feedback from many schools that this is a very easy to use tool for them. It does depend on what MIS you're using and what other tools you have available, and we totally recognise that. We want to make sure that everybody across the system has access to timely information in an easy to use way to tackle this big problem. We have had one quote from somebody where actually we must include it the next time we do this, where they said that this is giving them profound joy. So I always try and include that one in our quotes from users. So let's move on then. So we're just going to finish now by looking at the key messages we want to leave you with and some useful links before we go on to any Q&A. So these messages to think about: it's really easy to share your daily attendance data with DFE. If you want to get ahead of mandating, it's free and you get access to all the sorts of tools that we've talked through. You can do this through your One portal or by contacting support@one.com. And as Jamie said, it will be mandatory for you to do this from the start of the next academic year. So if you want to get ahead of that, then this is the way to do it. Next slide, please. We have recorded roughly monthly webinars on all that we've been doing, and you can watch these on YouTube at DFE Sector Comms. We have a regular webinar for schools who are already sharing data, and we'll put a sign up link to that in the Q&A. And I think we've probably already mentioned a few times support@one.com. So let's go and see if there are any Q&As.
Thank you, Caroline. Sorry for my technical issues there. We have had a few questions from people who are already sharing data, and when they log into the tool, the data that they're seeing is not what they're expecting, and it's not correct. So a few people are saying that, and a couple of people saying that they have emailed Wand as well. So just a question about what they should do if they can't see the data correctly.
So the first thing you should do is look at the known issues log within the View Your Education Data Service. So I think Laura will nod and hopefully I've got this right. So over the course of the time this work has been running, we have addressed a lot of the issues where people have said, things aren't looking quite the same as the information they get out of their management information system. Not wanting to teach you to suck eggs or anything, but there are some basic things to just make sure are working for you. One is to check or uncheck the compulsory age filter to make sure that you're looking at like for like. One of the main ones, which is a known issue that we have recently made a filter available on, is leavers. Leavers is quite a tricky issue to solve. So there are, we sort of look at it in two ways: end year leavers, so leavers from the previous academic year, and mid-year leavers. And our ability to correctly exclude them completely if they're end year leavers from last year, or allow them to filter in or out if they're mid-year leavers, depends on the information you've recorded in your management information system. So it depends on the leaving dates being right. So we've got quite a lot of examples actually where pupils have got sessions they've attended after a leaving date. So trying to look at how to deal with that is something we are looking at right now. So that is a known issue. If you still, having looked at that, can't identify, no, it doesn't seem to be any of those issues, what you need to do is raise a service desk ticket, and then we will look at that individually for your school and your data and try and resolve that for you.
Thank you, Caroline. And we'll pop a link to that service desk ticket raising as well in the chat, so you can do that if you haven't already. The next question that we've had a couple of times, Caroline, is about how up to date the data is, and also what the cutoff time is for their daily registers as well.
So we take the data effectively the day after you record it in your registers every day. If you update anything in your MIS, we take it. So what we're doing is taking the changes. So that will always include the attendance, because that changes every day. But what we're also doing is taking anything else you've changed of the data fields we're collecting. So I don't know if there was a change in name, or I mean, it'll mainly be things around free school meals or education, health and care plan, those kinds of things. When they change, we update the information that we hold. And then in terms of the information presented in the secure reporting area, some of the information is updated daily and some is updated weekly, and it will show you on each page when it was last updated. So for some things like the charts, it doesn't, because they're sort of weekly, it doesn't make sense to update it daily. So you will be able to see that on the secure information. Some information like the compare tools and the public information is updated fortnightly, and again it tells you what date the data relates to. I'm hoping Laura is still there.
I am. Sorry, the lights turned off on me in the room, so I was just moving to.
You're not having a good day today, are you?
I know. Remake the lights come on. We've got a couple of policy questions, Jamie, if I can bring you in, if that's okay.
Sure, happy to.
So we've got some questions from independent schools about whether they need to share their daily attendance registers with us or not.
Okay, yes, that's an easy one. So the duty on schools to share their daily attendance data do not apply to any independent schools except independent schools that are academies. So if you are an independent school but you are not an academy school, then you're not in scope for the regulations and don't have access to the View Your Education data tool.
Thanks, Jamie. Also, some questions about how the data from special schools is being used and whether it is being compared to mainstream schools or not.
Yes, so good question. So at the moment, special and AP schools cannot use the compare your attendance functionality that Caroline demoed earlier. This is because, and I think some questioners have pointed this out, it would be inappropriate for us to compare the attendance outcomes of special schools with mainstream schools. Special and AP schools may wish to look at the published fortnightly data which is split into special and compare their attendance in a more intelligent way than we can through this tool that sort of meets the circumstances of their settings. So no, there is no comparison between special and maintained, but some manual comparisons can take place if special schools wish to.
Thanks, Jamie. We've got a few questions as well from people who are already sharing their data, but who haven't got access to the dashboard via on Viad, so we'll be able to get onto Viad, but I think can't see monitor your school attendance. So we have actually got a gov.uk page that takes you through a few of the different scenarios for access and how you do it. So the first thing to say is you need to have a DFE sign-in account and then access to Viad. You can request those if you don't already have them, and then once you're onto Viad, you need to request access from your super user. So we have a gov.uk page that that talks you through those different scenarios and how to get access. So we'll pop that in the chat, and also when we send round the recording from today, we'll also share that with you. So you can, if you are sharing data but you aren't currently able to get onto these dashboards, then we'll allow you to do that. Caroline, we've also got a question, some from Matt, some from LA's, about how useful the data looks for schools and whether they will be able to access some of the stuff on Compare and on bandings as well.
Yeah, so we are aware that this would be useful for you. We are looking at how and when we can do that. So I think the best is to say watch this space. I'm not going to promise a date because I'd be shocked by the team, but yeah, we are very aware that it would be useful for you. We're looking into it.
Thanks, Caroline. Thank you, Jamie. I think that's about all we've got time for now. Sorry if you've answered a question we've not had time to get around to it. We will keep trying to answer some of the questions in the chat, but hopefully that's been useful for everybody. And anything else to say, Jamie and Caroline, before we wrap up? No? Great. Thank you everybody so much for attending. I'm sorry about my technical issues and the lights turning off on me as well. But thank you so much for attending. And like I say, we'll send round the YouTube clip so that you can watch this back if you want to. We'll send round some common questions and questions we didn't have the chance to answer today. And we'll also share all the useful links with you that have been on the sides and posted in the chat as well. So you get all of that within the next week. So thank you very much for attending and have a good day.